In the 1930s, the danger of Nazism was there. It was in everything Hitler wrote and said, in everything the Nazi authorities did.
Dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
In the corruption of a whole generation of German youth through the propaganda of Nazism in schools. But people thought, well, this is a German problem, it's a limited problem. We have our own problems, we have our unemployment. And I think the same is true today. They don't connect the dots. They don't connect the acts together. They don't see that Islamic fundamentalism is a global network and a global problem.
There is no terrorist threat. There is no terrorist threat. Yes, there have been horrific acts of terrorism, and yes, there will be acts of terrorism again. But that does not mean that there's just some massive terrorist threat.
We have to worry about terrorism. If terrorism had struck on the West Coast rather than the East Coast, some of the folks in Hollywood might have a somewhat different view.
People don't want to feel that this is part of a single threat, because if you come to that conclusion, and I'm sure it's the true conclusion, then you have to do something about it.
If you ignore a real threat, like has happened in the past before World War II, then the world will pay with many, many millions of dead.
In Second World War, the West was sleeping. The Munich Accords came regarding what should we do about this Adolf Hitler who wants to take over Czechoslovakia. So what did the parliament do in Great Britain? They got together and they said, well, we need to give Hitler land for peace.
In return for Hitler's guarantee of world peace, Chamberlain and Daladier prevailed upon Czechoslovakia to give up the Sudetenland without a fight. In Britain, a happy Chamberlain came back declaring he had achieved peace in our time. One of the most tragic and ironic scenes in all history.
This morning, I had another talk with the German Chancellor, Herr Hitler. And here is the paper which bears his name upon it as well as mine.
Chamberlain believed that they could do a deal with Hitler, that Britain and Germany had a special affinity.
We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
Winston Churchill had warned his country and his government that they were pursuing a disastrous course with regard to appeasing Germany.
These gangs of bandits have sought to darken the light of the world, have sought to stand between the common people of all the lands and their march forward into their inheritance.
Peace. It wasn't peace. By taking the Sudetenland, they had made Czechoslovakia defenseless, a ripe plum ready to fall into Hitler's lap. Within 6 months of declaring that he wanted no more territory anywhere, he violated the Munich Agreement. Austria and Czechoslovakia were gone without a fight, and Hitler was getting his control of Eastern Europe. Poland was next on the map.
Churchill never considered himself a great leader. He always considered that he had failed, because from 1933 to 1939, he had warned his country and his government. So when war came, and when in May 1940 he was asked to be Prime Minister, he felt he was only there because he had failed. That if he had been listened to, if the country had understood the German danger, if the country had allied with other states threatened by Germany, then this situation would never have come to pass. That Hitler could have been deterred. Perhaps it could have been stopped. Perhaps millions of lives could have been saved.
Today, the press, by minimizing the potential threats, by ignoring the potential threats, are doing a tremendous disservice to the West by not alarming the people to what they should be alarmed about.
When you ignore what people are saying, when they're actively on a daily basis calling for your own annihilation, calling for the annihilation of your country, you're ignoring them at your own risk.
The same thing is happening now again. History is repeating itself.
I was a very intense believer in the Nazi ideology, and I know what a supreme dedication to an ideology can do.
From an early age, Alphonse Heck was influenced by the Nazi worldview. He joined the Hitler Youth at the age of 10, and by the end of World War II, he was a high-ranking officer of the Hitler Youth.
It is absolutely correct to say, if you can't learn from the events of Nazi Germany, you will not be able to grasp the true intent of the danger of the radical Muslim world today. You're simply hiding.
History has an unfortunate habit of always repeating itself.
The idea that the radical Muslims have and that Nazis had is they demonize the Jews. You know, they just turn them into demons. And I mean, this is exactly what happened in Germany. Now, can you imagine? We were enlightened people and we fell for this. Why wouldn't Muslims fall for this?
فاليهود هم اليهود، هؤلاء هم الذين يجب أن يذبحوا ويجب أن يقتلوا. لمن وضع حزاما ناسفا على نفسه أو على أبنائه ودخل في أعماق اليهود وقال الله أكبر ولله الحمد لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
They are killing the infidels just like the preacher in the mosque told them to do. It's their duty to kill them.
تا اسرائیل از صحنه روزگار حذف نشود، این فریادها به قوت خود باقی
I watched anti-Semitism since I was a young kid, and now the world is reaping. These eggs are hatching, and what's coming out is literally something that comes out of Nazi Germany. The same as in Nazi Germany, the Boy Scouts in Nazi Germany, we had the youth. The youth was being robbed from being youth.
Arab children are being taught that Jews are inherently not human, that they are born from monkeys and pigs, that it's perfectly all right to kill them, that is a command from Allah to kill all Jews.
اسمك ايه؟ بسمة. عندك كم سنة؟ 3 سنين. انت مسلمة؟ بسملة، انتي تعرفي اليهود؟ بتحبيهم؟ لا ما بتحبيهمش ليه؟
كده
عشان هم ايه؟
هم قردة وخنازير.
عشان هم قردة وخنازير؟ مين قال عليهم كده؟
ربنا.
قال عليهم فين؟
القرآن.
قال عليهم في القرآن كده صح.
I think the worst form of child abuse is teaching a child to hate. What we have on Palestinian TV and on Saudi TV over and over again are little kids being taught songs, I want to be a suicide bomber.
إذا احتجت على باب القدس أصبت بدائيا، أصبت بدائيا بزي مقاتلي، بزي مقاتلي، بزي مقاتلي. برافو 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 برافو.
The radical Muslims, without any doubt, learned from the Nazis in how to indoctrinate the young.
You know, kids 8, 6 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, teenagers watching cartoons. And what do they see? They see a depiction of Sharon in this thing called Dara-Cola. You got Coca-Cola, you got Dara-Cola. But Dara-Cola is Arab blood.
لا مستشارون فهمني. أنا كلمت متخصصين عشان نسوي بطل مشروب، بطل حاجة ساعة، شوية دم عربي علشان نشرب دم العرب.
And the youth who are listening to this day and night, what do you expect to happen?
A Palestinian teenager showed up at a crowded West Bank checkpoint wearing a suicide bomb vest. Soldiers sent a yellow robot to hand scissors to the boy so he could cut off the vest. Once the boy was out of harm's way, bomb vest was detonated.
And I think this is the crime that the Muslim world commits against its children. Hitler committed a crime against young Germans. It took me a long time to see that. But what the Muslims do to their own children is even worse.
They tell Arab children that Jews bake cookies with their blood.
منيح. أصلاً إحنا في عنا مهمة القيادة ولازم ننفذها بسرعة. إيه؟ شو هي؟
This is a scene from the television series Al-Shatat. It was broadcast on satellite TV stations that reach hundreds of millions of viewers.
اسمع، بدنا دم طفل مسيحي قبل الفصح مشان الفطير. شالوم هذا شافكم؟ لا. متأكد؟ طبعا. معناتها خلينا نبدأ فورا.
مدام ندور على البيت.
تكرم حبيبي. بعد شوي بنروح.
Throughout the Middle Ages, there was this libel that the Jews needed blood of a Christian child to make matzah. Now, of course, today the world knows this is totally libelous accusation, no connection to truth at all. Yet the Al-Shatat film was able to include a video depiction of this ancient blood libel as if this is real Jewish ideology.
There is no shame in Arab media. In the degree they are ready to cover hate speech and lies, outright lies against the Western Israel.
التي تصنع الفطير من دم الأطفال الأبرياء.
The ironic thing about this whole thing is that if you look at reality, you can see what we accused the Jews of doing. We carried it out literally.
فالقتل في سبيل الله أشهى أمانيهم والإدخال في جنودك وحلفائك من أسعد لحظاتهم وحز رؤوس الكفرة المجرمين تطبيق لأمر ربنا.
cameras are there for the whole world to see it, but the world refuses to see.
Shalom, shalom. فصح مجيد, فصح مجيد.
When I see films like Shatat or broadcast during Ramadan, I see a recurring theme. I don't see anything new, in fact. I see attacks against Jews. I see an attempt to depict Jews as bloodthirsty people, as murderers, as a people who would sacrifice Christian children to drink their blood during their holiday.
حبيت ذوقك في الفصح المقدس. شكرا. كيف شفتها مطيبة؟
عادية مثل الفطاير الدنيا.
لا تغلط، هي ألذ وأقدس لأنه معجون بدم نقي، دم جزر.
What is significant is not just the film, but the time in which it was shown. Ramadan is a time when people will look at the TV because it is a month in which Muslims traditionally think there's a lot of blessing and there's a lot of religious education going around. So when you choose that month to show a particular film that is anti-Semitic, you are grabbing an almost captive audience.
And it just shows you how dangerous propaganda could be. How could you possibly believe this in the 21st century? How could you possibly believe this? And yet, they believe it because of the incessant propaganda.
If you would have asked me when I was 6 years old, who are the worst people on the face of this earth, my answer would have been they are Jews. They ought to be killed.
إسرائيل هي عدونا. هذا كيان غاصب غير قانوني غير شرعي ولا مستقبل له في أرضنا ومصيره يعبر عنه دمنا والشعار الموت لإسرائيل.
Almost the first people who applauded Hitler's rise to power were the Arabs.
The Nazis and the Islamists share a common conspiracy theory. The Jews control America, for example. This is the way that it is portrayed day in, day out in the Arab media.
مخطئ من ظن بأن أمريكا هي التي تتحكم في إسرائيل وقراراتها، إسرائيل المزعومة، لا، بل إن الصهيونية العالمية هي التي تحرك القرار الأمريكي على الريموت كنترول.
If you believe all that, then you are engaged in a war of survival for your very existence.
نواجه معركة أكبر بكثير مما تتصورون. إننا نواجه معركة مع الصليبية، نواجه معركة مع الصهيونية العالمية.
And in that sense it's identical to Nazi propaganda. This is a war of propaganda in which the same techniques of subversion that we saw earlier in the challenge posed by fascism and Nazism are repeating themselves.
The propaganda of Islam is very similar to the propaganda of Nazism. It's the same hate speech, paranoia, and us against them.